Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda, and please welcome to our Operation Freedom platform, WeThePeopleProcessing.com. You know, are you tired of being threatened to be canceled just because you have a company focused on liberty and freedom? Well, worry no more, folks. WeThePeopleProcessing.com is your go-to merchant services, freedom-based company to provide business service payment solutions. We the People Processing provides their clients a cancel culture-free platform which is domestically based. They provide competitive rates, no contracts with next-day funding, a fully vetted and like-minded financial infrastructure, and full support for integrations, implementation, and e-commerce efforts. Bottom line, WeThePeopleProcessing.com focuses on defending your company's free market growth, values, and future. Check them out at www.WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Once you're on the site, enter in password Operation Freedom or call 855-499-2024. That's WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Then, when on the website, enter Operation Freedom as your password or call 855-499-2024.
Mr. President-elect,
go ahead.
Can you state
She's
categorically?
asking a question.
Mr. President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You are
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a
question.
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir.
I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Dave Vs The MSM. I'd like to thank you for joining me today. We are not only available on this platform, which is heavily censored, of course, but the platform that we do the most in-depth work on is at davejanda.com. We have the radio show, which airs from the People's Republic of Ann Arbor every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern. You can listen to it live, and it's free. Go to davejanda.com, hit the Listen Live button, takes you a Wham Talk 1600 streaming service. Hit play, and you're with us. Great guests, great analysis. Plus, we have our extra shows, extra content, extra guests, extra analysis, in-depth analysis that we can't do here at davejanda.com. We hope you become part of our freedom family. The title of today's presentation is Afghanistan. It's, as Yogi Bear would say, it's deja vu all over again. What do I mean by that? I'm an old guy, and I remember when the United States turned tail and left South Vietnam. And those helicopters landing on the top of the embassy building with people crawling up ladders to get to them to try to get out of harm's way as the North Vietnamese were coming in to Saigon, I felt there was a pretty good possibility that in my lifetime I'd never see that again. Fortunately, I was wrong. Very unfortunately, I was wrong. And we just saw it again this past weekend in Kabul. We also saw it, and they censored much of this information and video. It's a very similar picture of what happened during the Obama-Biden administration. What's the recurrent theme here? Biden was a senator with the fall of Saigon and had significant input into foreign affairs. He was also the vice president when Benghazi occurred 10 years ago. That was where we left, remember, 4 Americans to, well, just get taken out and dozens more to put in harm's way. And if it weren't for the patriots that stepped in, Ty Woods, Glenn Doherty, there would have been more than 4 that perished there. The Obama-Biden administration messed that up. Well, maybe they just let it happen. And once again, they let this happen in Kabul. It is deja vu all over again. It shows that there was no exit strategy. They can try to pawn this off on President Trump for cutting the initial deal with the Taliban. But remember, that initial deal was going to be a stepwise process as opposed to a cut and run process as an exit strategy that Biden implemented. No, this one's all on Basement Joe. and on Milley and every one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It was pure incompetence. The ramifications of this are going to be enormous. Let me ask you something. If you're in another foreign country, let's say a smaller foreign country, and you watch this cut and run happen and how it happened, and that there was a lack of a exit strategy, would you cuddle up to the United States knowing full well that they'll cut and run? An exit strategy was put in place by the Trump administration. And the Biden administration cut it to shreds and just made it simple. We're just going to get out. We'll talk about that in a second. No. Look at the cost. Huh? In the last 20 years since we went into Afghanistan, we spent $1 trillion, with a T, $1 trillion for what? Even worse than the $1 trillion of taxpayer money that could have been used much more effectively, let's hope, domestically. Or how about maybe just cutting people's taxes who are already overburdened? Thousands of gallons of U.S. service persons' blood were left over there. 2,500 Americans were killed in Afghanistan over the past 20 years. 20,000 patriots were wounded in Afghanistan. We spent over $700 million just for that beautiful American embassy that the Taliban is now sitting in. There was supposed to be a transitional government with the current Afghan government and the Taliban honchos, whatever you want to call them, leadership. That never happened. No. Why? Because there was an incoherent, incompetent exit strategy. This from Zero Hedge. Biden mobilizes 5,000 troops. You would love to be one of those, I say this facetiously, one of those 5,000 American patriots that now were sent over there to try to help clean up the mess in aisle 5 that Biden and Milley and all these other incompetents created. Aren't you waiting for the next announcement? By the way, Biden is hiding at Camp David. Can you imagine if Trump did this? Is hiding at Camp David, has not spoken publicly. They put out one picture of him sitting in Camp David, reportedly, and there's nobody else in the room. Plus, on the TV screen, it showed our operatives in Afghanistan. I mean, you just gave those guys up. I mean, maybe that's what they wanted to do. I don't know. They gave up our people in Benghazi. Maybe this is just another, every 10 years they got to give somebody up. I don't know. Yeah, they're on the TV screens. And they send this out. And it shows our attaches. Wouldn't you love to be those guys? Trying to get out of town to get to the airport that has Taliban checkpoints? Oh, yeah. 5,000 troops Biden just sent in to clean up the mess. This from Zero Hedge. There's been reported growing frustration and anger, even within the Democratic administration itself, over Biden's being utterly silent Friday into Saturday, into Sunday, into Monday. He has no schedule. He supposedly he's going to address the nation sometime this week, or that first week that this happened. Why wasn't he out there on Friday or Saturday or Sunday or the next announcement is going to be, just like we sent Kamala Harris to fix the southern border, we're going to send Kamala Harris to fix Afghanistan. And can you imagine that? What a joke these two are. There's been reported growing frustration and anger within the Democratic administration itself over Biden's being utterly silent Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. While for much of the past week, the Taliban has steamrolled Afghan forces as it prepares to lay siege to Kabul. He's even vacationing this week at Camp David. Axios described the president, or I can't say it, Biden, as, quote, being, quote, relaxing, end quote. How special. Can you imagine if Trump is relaxing? Oh, that's good. I'm glad he's getting some time away. Amid growing pressure to address the crisis, which is seeing a rapid emergency evacuation from the U.S. Embassy in Kabul with Pentagon assistance, Biden belatedly addressed the situation, finally late on the day Saturday. His first move was to announce an increase in the U.S. security deployment to Kabul to assist the evacuation of U.S. diplomatic staff. Let's go back in time. July 8th, Biden had a press conference. I played it on my radio show last Sunday. It was like an hour. It was a minute or a couple minutes. It was a joke. Where he said, "Oh, you're not going to see helicopters landing on roofs, and you're not going to see a hasty this. Oh, it's fine." Huh. Quote, "The most infamous and devastating press conference ever held by an American president," end quote. This is from Zero Hedge. Kabul's streets are clogged with panicked civilians fleeing the Taliban onslaught of the Afghan capital. American Chinook helicopters are hovering above the U.S. Embassy with an emergency evacuation in progress. And the national government, propped up for 2 decades by U.S. money and power, is negotiating a surrender with barely a fight. Barely a fight. Yeah, barely a fight. One former officer has observed, looking back to Joe Biden's July 8th Afghan policy speech, quote, "This may become the most infamous and devastating press conference ever held by an American president," end quote, wrote Foreign Operations veteran Brian Dean Wright. Here's the exchange from a bit over a month ago. Reporter, "Is a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?" Biden, "No, it is not." Reporter, "Why?" Biden, "Because the Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped, as well-equipped as any army in the world, and an air force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable." This Brian Dean Wright states, "Perhaps this utter failure to grasp or predict anything close to reality on the ground in the conflict is a favor also shared by U.S. intelligence." Yeah. Given that it was only in June that a widely reported intel assessment forecast that Kabul could fall within 6 months. How about like 6 hours? 6 months. Couple things. One, we had 20 years there, 20 years to train and test the Afghan military and government in stabilizing their country and to prepare for when we left. That spanned the W administration, that spanned the Obama administration, the Trump administration, and now the Biden administration. I think based on what we've seen so far, that training and testing either was an absolute failure or it never occurred. 2, this is going to be put on President Trump. This is what the Bought Off Flame Stream Fave media is going to do. Say, well, he cut the initial deal with the Taliban, and that's the problem. And just Biden was just following through. No, that's not true. Yeah, he did cut a deal with the Taliban. And frankly, I think that was a bit of a... I think the deep state didn't really like that very much. Oh, why are you saying that? Look, number one cash crop. Single greatest export from Afghanistan is what? Opium and heroin. Right. What I did is I actually went back and looked at the data associated with the opium production. Yeah. Let me give you a couple numbers. First of all, 80% of global heroin and opium production and supplies come from, Afghanistan. Yeah, okay. And are you aware? Let's just look at the opium production. In 2000, before we got there, it was 3,000 tons that year. In 2001, the Taliban had taken control and power. And actually, the Taliban had implemented a policy to stop opium and heroin production. Yeah, surprising to a lot of people. I'm not saying the Taliban's a bunch of great people. I'm just saying they said, and they had a directive that if you were producing opium, you were gonna get offed. Okay. And opium production fell in 2001 in Afghanistan from 3,000 tons to 180 tons. That's 180 tons too much, but hey, better than 3,000. After we had been there a year, what do you think opium production had gone to? From 180 tons in 2001 back up to 3,200 tons. By the end of Bush's first term, W's first term, Afghanistan was up to producing 4,100 tons of opium. By the end of Bush's second term, it had gone up to 5,900 tons. By the end of Obama's second term, it was up to 4,800 tons. And in 2019, the latest annual figure I could find, it was up to 6,400 tons. Now, by President Trump cutting the deal with the Taliban, who had already voiced and has a historical record of saying, this stuff, we're not going to have that part of what we're overseeing. Deep State didn't like that very much, right? Because the Deep State makes a huge amount of money out of drug trafficking and human trafficking. So leaving Afghanistan was not a bad decision. We've been there 20 years. Enough bloodshed, enough money. However, the exit strategy was key. And as opposed to the stepwise exit strategy that Trump and Pompeo and their teams had negotiated and were ongoing negotiating. And a big part of that stepwise process was having a military presence as certain conditions were met. And Biden and Milley, the Joint Chiefs, just threw that all to the wind and said, we're out of here. So look, when you look at an execution of an exit strategy, what would I look at? And this is discussing with a number of people that are pros at this. One, you want to train and test the Afghan troops on defensive and offensive measures. So when the time comes to leave, there is a secure, stepwise process of leaving the country so that those who helped you, who were Afghans, were protected, that your military assets are protected, so that when the transition comes, and remember, the plan was the transition to be recent past Afghan representatives in the government and this Taliban contingent. You want to secure the safe passage of Americans out of the country, number one. Number two, you want to secure the safe passage for those who assisted. And through that, you issue special immigrant visas, so-called SIVs. Roughly, there are about 88,000 Afghans that were integral in helping establish the Afghan government and helped America, the Americans that were there. It's my understanding of the 88,000 that were counting on special immigrant visas because they knew that with the Taliban having some semblance of power sharing, that they could well be targeted. It's my understanding of the 88,000, only 2,000 were issued special immigrant visas by the Biden administration. That leaves 86,000 out to hang. 3, you want to redeploy your military equipment on a graduated basis with the priority of leaving defensive assets on the ground until the final extraction or airlift. That wasn't done. The Taliban now has the most sophisticated weaponry that Biden just left, and Milley just left it there. Oh, take it. What? Why would you do that? Because you know who's following the Taliban in. It's China. You've handed over all these military assets to China, carte blanche. Now, maybe that was by design. We all know that China, through good old Hunter's laptop, bought the Biden family for $1.5 billion that was laundered through Hunter. Was that part of the deal too? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? There was no exit strategy. There was no exit strategy that was executed that was comprehensive, let alone even the least bit, I don't know, competent. 20 years. What do you think this is going to do? And maybe this is part of their plan. What do you think this is going to do for recruiting people to join the United States military to watch that? You think it's going to help? I don't think so. I don't think so. Is this going to help foreign relations with us for other countries? Why would they want to work with us after watching this goat rodeo? Because it is really a goat rodeo. But this was completely predicted. Completely predicted. For those that thought that we were an embarrassment on the international stage from 2016 to 2020, they were wrong. They were so consumed with a personality, they didn't look at the facts in front of them. The United States, because of what Biden and Milley and the Joint Chiefs, what they did over the past 8 months over there, has truly, truly made the United States an embarrassment. And to all those who served over there, thank you. You were put in a terrible situation. And realize, if you hadn't been there, what we saw transpire this weekend would have happened years ago. The question is, should we have been there in the first place? It's a great question. Because the premise of us going there in the first place has been shown to be questionable at best. but we went there. A lot of people lost their lives. But a lot of money was made for the deep state and the globalist syndicate. And that's what this always comes down to, right? All these wars, all these events are at the hands of the deep state, the New World Order crowd, the globalist syndicate, whatever you want to call them. Because out of these conflicts, guess what happens? They get more power, more control, and more money. Look at what's happened. Just look at Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021. Who benefited? And you have your answer over why it occurred. Fact. And that is the dirty little secret the bought-off lamestream fake media will never touch. I thank you for your time today. I hope you'll join us at davejanda.com. Now look, I did an Operation Freedom briefing last week that you need to watch. We kept it up there. It's called the devolution of our government and, frankly, of our society. And it focuses on a lot of different things. Information I can't talk on YouTube. It's free. It's on homepage, right-hand side, Operation Freedom Briefing, red box. Watch it and then network it to anyone and everyone you know and love. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.